So I haven't uploaded on this channel since 2018. High school kind of hit me like a truck. I became really busy my second semester of my sophomore year. And honestly, I got caught up in a lot of petty high school stuff. But in those 25 or so months since I've uploaded, my interest in geography has not stopped at all. In fact, I've taken a lot of classes that have really furthered my interest, like political violence and terrorism, AP comparative government, and then there's other stuff like America at War and world religions, and all of it just kind of made me want to revive this channel. Then I came home from school today and I was just like impulsively, let's make an everything geography video. I also think that a lot of times people take way too complicated of an approach to international relations and global affairs. I'm not about that. I have another YouTube channel that's much more popular that's just like comedy videos, and I think taking that approach to more complicated global affairs stuff is gonna work well because I can explain it in a lot simpler terms. So, I was just looking at the world, as I do, and I'm like, what should I talk about? And I decided, let's talk about Bahrain, if I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering it. It's just one of those countries. Now, Bahrain is a small island in the Middle East. It's just kind of chilling there. Everyone's focused on the big boys like Saudi Arabia and Iran. And then some of those smaller countries get a lot of attention. Qatar, sorry if I'm butchering that one, and Kuwait. The problem is though, a lot of it is negative attention. Qatar's had a lot of issues with Saudi Arabia. Kuwait got invaded by the US back when the US was obsessed with invading the Middle East. Oh wait, no, that's still happening, never mind. I specifically wanted to talk about the recent political transition. It wasn't like a big transition, it was just like the prime minister died, but there's a couple of reasons why I think it's kind of a big deal. The first one is because the prime minister that died in November of 2020 had been serving for 50 years. And that made him the longest serving head of government. He wasn't elected, but I think at the time of his death, the only two leaders that had served longer was Queen Elizabeth and then the Sultan of Brunei. Both of those are heads of state. So this was a pretty significant thing. And I also think it's kind of strange because this prime minister survived so much. He was the first prime minister of the country's history. He survived 2 coup attempts, a lot of insurgency from like 1994 to the early 2000s. They passed 2 new constitutions while he was in office, and especially in the Middle East, that's hard to come by. Now I'm gonna try to explain the political system of Bahrain in the easiest way possible. So basically there is a king who has a very long name, and then there's a prime minister who also has a very long name. Then they have a bicameral legislator. I don't know how to say that either. That legislator has one body that's elected by the people, and then one body that's appointed solely by the king. Now, the weird thing is, I don't know why they have the differentiation between king and prime minister, because first of all, the prime minister is also called prince before their really long name, and second of all, he's usually related to the royal family. So it's like, a little sus, I guess. But you gotta consider, no matter how sus it might be, they've done it right. It's kind of a basket case, honestly, for the Middle East because he survived a lot of insurgency. And I just talked about the coup attempts, but then you also gotta consider Arab Spring, which pretty much affected every single country in the Arab world in 2011. Arab Spring definitely exposed a lot about the Arab world, and it changed a lot about it too. But the problem is those changes weren't really good. I'm pretty sure only one country actually had a leadership change during Arab Spring. I think it was Egypt, but I can't remember for sure. But a lot of those other countries suppressed Arab Spring because their leaders took a strongman approach to the problem, and they suppressed all of the opposition pretty bad. Bahrain didn't really have to do that. I mean, maybe it's because it's a really small country by population, and the leadership style of Khalifa did change a little bit, but it wasn't like he had to crack down on like all civil liberties in the country. Also, can we talk about that economy? Pretty crazy. I mean, they have like the most stable economy in the Middle East, and it's been that way for a while. It's been pretty good since the beginning, of course, because of oil, which is a little puzzling to me because it's a really small island, so I don't know where they're getting all of that. Also, the fact that they built a bridge between them and Saudi Arabia, that really helped. Obviously, ground transportation helps boost an economy when all you had before was sea transportation and air transportation. I don't know whether to say it's dictatorship done right, because that's a term that's used for some countries. I mean, it's used sparsely because usually unelected leaders that serve for long periods of time are seen as bad. But all in all, I mean, it was a pretty good thing for the country. And I think it's pretty significant that the longest serving head of government died. I don't know why it wasn't reported on more. Maybe because the media only focuses on the US elections for a period of about 2 years. You know, it's like the 20 months preceding a US presidential election, and then the 4 months after it, it's the entire news cycle. I think everything else just gets buried. I think it's kind of strange because Khalifa died in the United States a week after the presidential election, and there wasn't a sound about it. And that just goes to show the America-centric view of the media, but that's a topic for another video. I mean, did you know that? Did you know that he died in the United States? Probably not. He also spent a lot of time out of the country in the last couple years because he was getting treatment at a lot of different hospitals. He spent like 5 months out of the country in Germany the year before he died, which I think is kind of strange. I always thought that was strange if like leaders spend so much time outside of their own country while they're still serving. Now Bahrain has a new prime minister whose name is also Khalifa, which makes things a little confusing. No one's really too sure about his governing style because even though he's been in government for about 20 years, this is his first time being prime minister. I mean, obviously, because he's literally only the second prime minister. Ever since independence, they've only had one head of government. So it's going to be a little bit different, I guess. But then again, he's also part of the same royal family, so I don't know if I'd expect things to change that much. And not only that, but he's the heir apparent for the throne. So I don't know, there's probably going to be a third prime minister soon. But I don't think that a lack of change is necessarily a bad thing. Bahrain is one of the freest economies in the Middle East. And also they've really flown under the radar in a good way. I mean, it's a great tourist destination. I mean, people go there, and that supports their economy a lot, especially with the oil wells starting to dry up. You also got to consider that they don't have beef with everyone else, which is kind of a theme in the Middle East. I mean, Israel has beef with everybody. Saudi Arabia has beef with Iran and Lebanon. Lebanon has beef with Iran. Kuwait has beef with, I don't know, but they got to have beef with somebody. Qatar has beef with Saudi Arabia and Iran. Like, it's just too much. Bahrain doesn't have beef with anybody. They had some like issues with Iran back in the 2000s, and I think that Iran tried to orchestrate a coup attempt, unless I just read completely wrong on that. But Bahrain did a great job at smoothing everything out. And especially with all the political turmoil that happened in the Middle East, cough cough Lebanon 2017, I think it's surprising that good diplomatic leadership is not praised more or recognized more. But then again, the media only likes to report on bad things, so I guess it's not that surprising. Also, the new prime minister went to American University in DC, which is one of the schools I'm applying to, so that's pretty cool. That's my take on the situation. I hope that you guys like this because I think explaining it in more simple terms without a script definitely makes it easier to understand. And I also think there's a big community of people out there that like to hear about this kind of stuff. Because, you know, people get sick of hearing about the elections, especially because it's in the news cycle for 2 out of every 4 years. Like, there's more to the world than that. And I think it speaks volumes that the longest serving head of government died in the United States while there was a presidential election, so it didn't get talked about. You know, there's a lot of people out there that like hearing about this stuff, that like hearing about, you know, not the United States for once. And that's what I'm here for. I mean, that's my thing. You know, it's nice to do something else because I do have a main channel, and, you know, making jokes about Palau and my ex-girlfriend 3 times a week is fun and all, but it's nice to diversify a little bit. Speaking of diversify, you gotta give some credit to Bahrain for the tourism and the aluminum sector and the King Fahd Causeway and all that. That's a politics of Bahrain simplified for you guys. Let me know what you wanna see next. I will literally talk about anything on this channel. So yeah, let me know.